Let us start by chanting Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. Now, let us start with I think, as I remember, we had a very energetic last sutra class. It usually becomes energetic when I'm in a mood. So let's continue along the rest of the Mulapariyāya Sutta. Mulapariyāya Sutta. All right. So page number 118, Learner on the Path. What we discussed, or the part of the sutra that we went through last time, was rather similar to the which was the sutta, to the sutta on the views that we did, right? The Brahmajala Sutta was rather similar in the way of the Brahmajala Sutta, in a way of approach. As it sort of mentioned, or rather sort of went into the factors by or to which we cling as we live, as we travel or attempt to travel upon the path leading to Dhamma, leading to nirvana, leading to dhyanic attainments, leading to spirituality, and sort of connoted the reasons, or rather the bondages that we have or that we cultivate along that stream of path, right? That is what we went through in that first section of the sutta that we discussed last week. So this week, now let us see what we are in for. The learner on the path. Right? The learner on the path. Now, this is referring to the trainees, the Seka Puggala, right? The trainees, right? The learner on the path, right? The elements, the 4 elements. Let's see what it is. Here, bhikkhus, a monk who is a learner, whose mind has not won the goal, and who is still aspiring to win the supreme security from bondage, supreme security from bondage. Now, that is a beautiful way to sort of, just imagine, picture that. Supreme security from bondage. I think some of you have, I think, heard me using this sort of term. The mind is a businessman. The mind never lets go, the mind is not convinced to let go of one until it is convinced that it has another, right? Until it is convinced that it has another. That is why I have mentioned before, techniques such as Vedananupassana is so easy compared to Anapanasati, because in Vedananupassana we do see a sensation. Regardless whether it is restless, subtle, gross, fast, slow, cold or warm, regardless, we have some sort of sensation. To some people's minds, due to the restlessness and of course the hindrances that flourish in our minds, we find it sometimes very difficult to observe the breath, Due to this reason, what is the position that we try to get into? We try to convince ourselves of nirvana over the other extreme. That is the bondage, right? That is what supreme security from bondage, right? So if one is trying to convince oneself through the practice, right? Or even without, if one is trying to convince oneself without the practice and experience of peace, tranquility, then it is something which is very difficult. One needs to enjoy and feel and know the blessings, the calm, tranquility, peace, and benefits brought into one's life through the practice and Dhamma, right? If one practices, now you practice Dhamma, let us say you come from a very Dhammic family, right? For example, coming from a Dhammic family, you do know, you have never been taught to, kill, steal, lie, to plunder. You have always been brought up with proper manners. Samantha, page number 118. You have been brought up with proper manners and etiquette and respect towards yourself and other people. This is all good. There are families of that sort, we know, right? However, because we lack awareness, we do not identify or credit ourselves upon what? Upon the benefits and blessing, peace, tranquility, etc., brought through that way of life, right? Through that way of life. So when or if it comes to a position or an imposition where now we have to do something wrong, we will easily be convinced to do it. Why? Because of the lack of awareness, we are unaware of that true peace. It is something which is like, it is normal, right? It is normal, right? It is that normalization that we do not. It is, nothing is normal. This is all effort. You know what I mean? Right? This is, for example, we take small examples as if, for example, you cook at home for your partners, your children, your husbands, your wives, and all of your pets and all of these things. All of those actions can be taken in to produce, cultivate, to develop parami. However, because you think, no, this is a normal thing, why am I thinking too much about it? What happens? The awareness falls away, right? And you lose that opportunity to develop parami, right? You lose that opportunity to develop parami. For example, I have personally, and I'm sure you have as well, come across people who have given their whole entire lives to their children. When the children were young, right? Till the time the children leave their home, you get, why Dil, you're laughing over there. It hits the spot, yeah. All right. So people give their whole entire life to their children. Their children is the be all and the end all. The children is the sun, the moon, and the stars, right? What happened? The children leave to university. The mother and the father are at home, looking up, don't know what to do with their lives. We have enough of examples, I think, being, Asians mostly. I mean, being Asian, we know that is sort of the Asian way of, bringing up children and being parents. What is that now? Because you give, now giving that amount of attention to your children is necessary and important, but because the lack of awareness, when you could have used that opportunity to develop paramis, rather you made use of that opportunity to develop some sort of tanha or craving, or to sort of forget the practice. This is where the shift happens. This is all to do with that awareness. Now, for example, someone gets cancer, right? When someone gets cancer, what is the first thing that that person might think? Something that I have noticed people asking is, why me? Right? Why me, isn't it? Most people say, why me? Why me? So what if we ask ourselves, why not me? What if we ask ourselves, why not me? Because who deserves cancer? Who deserves cancer? No one deserves cancer. If one has that empathy, compassion, understanding, all of that, no one deserves cancer. So why not me? You know what I mean? Right? It is an illness that affects humans. It is an illness that affects people who live, not even people, animals as well, right? It is that which affects. So why not me? We always ask ourselves, why me? Why is it that I suffer? If you're not going to suffer, who else is going to suffer? Right? We are here to suffer. Let's suffer together. Especially through my rants. Right? Let's suffer together. So it is there. It is all about that attitude, right? It is all about that attitude. This is why now the sutta, it is a beautiful, it's a small phrase, but it sort of says how the attitude should be in way that in our practice, how should we sort of navigate the mind? It is supreme security from bondage. Supreme security from bondage. What it hints at is, I am attached to this bottle. What do? I throw the bottle away. No. Throwing the bottle away is not going to do anything for you, right? Is not going to do anything for you. Now, for example, when it comes to Natcha Gita, Vadita, Visuka, Dasana, Mala, Ganda, Vilepana, Dharana, Mandana, Vibhusa, Nathana, Veramani, Sikhapadan, Samadhyami, to those of you who do not know, I'm very sorry. So, when we take that, when we take that Sikhapada, right? When we take that Sikhapada, what happens? Now it refers to Mala, Ganda, Vilepan. So that is perfumes and necklaces and ornaments and all of that, music and all of that. Let's go into the Sikhapada. What is a Sikhapada? Now, if you're listening, if let's say now we don't, if you're walking on the road, right? And someone is blasting music in their car, or some establishment is blasting music or something of that sort. What does the Sikhapada say, right? If there is a movement of body, now let's say now when I'm sitting like this, right, the neighbor is blasting some music, right? So does the Sikhapada break? That how it happens, if there is some sort of bodily movement to facilitate better hearing of the tune, the Sikhapada breaks, right? The Sikhapada breaks. So now it is not the music per se, it is the mind that clings on to it, right? It is the mind. Now, when we take, for example, if we take the sights, the visuals, the talks, the Tisma Katha, and all of those things that we have discussed in Brahmajala Sutta, by the way, right? The visuals, the sounds, the talks, everything, there is no way that you're going to escape. All of us break it. All of us. There is no doubt in it, right? Some way or another, we break it. Right? To that extent, it is almost impossible. Why is it impossible? Not because because our mind lapses that awareness, our mind lapses this discipline. It is nothing wrong with the world. The world is, you can't say, oh, the plant is growing too fast. Is that a complaint? Is that a complaint? You can't complain that the plant is growing too fast, right? The water flows too much. The water is supposed to flow. It is something of that sort. We do not blame nature. Rather, it is about the attitude, right? It is all about the attitude that we have. Now, whose mind has not won the goal, and who is still aspiring to win the supreme bondage, supreme security from bondage, perceives earth as earth. Having perceived earth as earth, he should not conceive himself as earth. He should not conceive himself in earth. He should not conceive. Think about your meditation, please. Right? Think about your meditation, your breath, the Vedana. This is what it is talking about. How do you observe a phenomena, or how should you rather observe a phenomena? This is how you should be. Not conceiving, not taking that specific phenomena as yourself, as himself in, himself a part of, or that sensation or earth is mine. In all of those four ways, you do not conceive. What you do, what, I'm sorry, what are you then supposed to do? You are just supposed to observe. That is why pain is very important, you see, right? That is why pain, it is easy to observe. And actually, we often realize that we have clung on to something when it causes us pain, right? When it causes pain. Why? Because that pain sensation is so gross. It hurts, it burns, it agitates, it's gross. But we often do not realize when something is comfortable, right? When something is comfortable. Now remember this, Saturday, Sunday, let's put this into practice. Yeah, right? Remember this, because you see, with many of the sutras that we have done up to now, and even through part of Abhidhamma, this has been repeated so many times. Do not conceive yourself as a part of it, as in it, or it being a part of you, or it being yours. This has been repeated again and again and again. This is the way to let go, knowing that yes, it is a phenomena, but it is necessarily not yours, or you're not a part of it, or it is not a part of you. It is there. It is there, right? Just as this body, when you die, with the kaya cheda, or the cutting off of the body, what happens? You leave this sack of, you leave this sack of carbohydrates and you move on. Right? You move on to a new fresh body, right? Wherever it might be. It might be in the human realm, beyond the human realm, or below the human realm. Wherever it is, you move on, right? The Buddha takes the example of a ambalama, a pilgrim's rest, where in the pilgrim's rest, when you are used to doing all of these good tasks, you speak to everyone saying sister, brother, akka, malli, all of that, right? But that is only when you are in the pilgrim's rest and you're doing all of the things that you should be doing whilst in the pilgrim's rest. But after all your meritorious deeds are done and dusted, you get onto your vehicles and you leave, never to be seen again, right? Never to be seen again. You depart. That is the world and life that we live in, right? This might to some seem okay, but is it really practical? Why not, right? Why not? Why don't we ask ourselves, rather than asking ourselves, why is it practical? Why do we think it's impractical, right? Let's turn the question for once. Why is it impractical? It is impractical because we do not want to believe. Why? Again, the avijja and the tanha. It keeps on telling. It is like those 2 spoons of sugar that you know is not good for you, right? It is that extra cup of coffee that you know is going to constipate you in the morning tomorrow, right? It is that. You know it is bad for you, yet you want to do it, right? For some reason, that is a tanha and avijja. We know it. As people of Dhamma, we know it, right? Let's continue. He should not delight in earth. Why is that? He should not. Now, that is talking about then the pain and especially the delight, right? That is why, sometimes when you say, oh, Bante, the meditation was good, who cares whether it's good? You're not supposed to care whether it's good, right? It's not supposed to be, you're supposed to, or what, the moment that we say the meditation is good hints to us that you are trying to have a good experience. Do not have a good experience. Do not have, say, come what may, blizzard or storm, sunshine or thunder, whatever it is, it's okay. It's okay, right? We do not expect the practice to be pleasant. right? Because that expectation, again, I don't have to tell you, conditions, right? That practice conditions. And that is almost, I mean, all of us know it is the basic story of the Buddha of how he attained Nibbana. Thunder or storm, let my bones turn to dust, I will not get up. What does that say? From one point, it talks about the arati virya, the radical effort that he put into the practice, but that is not our concern at the moment. What it talks about is pleasure or pain, come what may, regardless, right? Come what may. That is the attitude that we require, right? Regardless whether a person is good to you or bad to you, as bodhisattvas, now we are all bodhisattvas, we are trying to attain enlightenment, are we? After a few more ice creams, yeah? After a few more spoons of sugar, right? If we are at one point, right, be it in this lifetime or somewhere else, remember, right, we are bodhisattvas, right? Regardless of the fact, remember now, when you call yourself a bodhisattva, it is not as if you want to achieve this birth. The Buddha didn't want to achieve this birth. The Buddha wanted to achieve, when he did Asumedha, he wanted to achieve Buddhahood, right? Make sure, if, because I know many people want to do service, like myself, right? Want to do something for the world. Regardless, everyone has their different motivations, and that is accepted. The Buddha speaks about it. The Buddha says, when monks get ordained, not all monks do the same thing. Some monks, all they do during their time of monkhood is they clean, right? They clean. And this is true, you see. There are some monks in monasteries, they are all about the vatavat, the duties of cleaning, organizing things, in the sense of, building or all of that, taking care of the monastery, right? There are some monks who want to meditate. There are some monks who want to meditate and who do that all the time as well. And then there are some monks who are all about the Vinaya, who don't meditate also. They are all about the Vinaya, right? About their morals and principles. Then there are some monks who are about teaching, right? Cooking, I'm sorry, cleaning, Watama, cleaning, right? The moral principles, right? Meditation and teaching. The Buddha says these are all ways leading to Nibbana, right? These are all ways leading to Nibbana. So don't be doubtful of the fact, right? Don't be doubtful of yourself, because yes, we are following a teaching, but we walk on our different paths. That's okay, right? That's okay. Your mother in a past life could be a deva, could be an ant, right? Could be anything. We are on different paths. That's okay. But don't stop calling yourself a bodhisattva. Why? Remember the Sotapanna Chitta. Sotapanna Chitta, how does it work? It is the motivation that one has towards enlightenment that keeps one in the Sotapanna to Sakuddagami path, right? People ask, how does, one can attain to enlightenment within 7 births? How does this motivation continue after death? Because of the strong motivation, right? So yes, we are bodhisattvas, right? If we want to attain in this birth or in the future, regardless, we are bodhisattvas. So we should not forget that fact, and we should be able to continue along the lines of that, because that keeps us motivated in the path, right? That keeps us motivated in the path. Coming back to the sutta. Okay, why is that? So that he would have full understanding I say, right? He perceives water as water, fire as fire, wind as wind, beings as being, gods as God, Prajapati, Brahma, Abhasara, Subha, Subha, Kinnaka, Vehappala, Overlord, all of that. You perceive it as it is. Present moment awareness, experience based awareness, right? No story. There is no egocentric based story that you're lining it with, right? There is no ego based story that you're now, this is a skill, right? This is a skill. This is not something that you can say, okay, let me see it as it is. No, you can't do that, right? You can have the motivations, but this is a skill that you develop, right? This is a skill that you, of course, then how do you develop it? Through learning how to observe a sensation, a mind, the breath as it is. So then, right, you can be in the middle of an argument, or rather someone might be shouting at you, or you might be shouting at someone else, or experiencing some sort of fragility. But as you do, you learn to know the thing as it is. That's very important, right? What is important is you know the reason or the truth behind the phenomena, right? Now, our focus, I believe that our focus in, in a way remains to be to rather avoid and not do, right? But the thing is, avoidance keeps us in a same place. Do you understand what I mean? Now, let's say, if we are to say, avoid the mud, avoiding the mud, that sentence implies that you are in a muddy place. Do you get what I mean? Right? So then, if avoiding the mud, that statement, right, if that is what is recurring in your head, then in the same mind, you are in a recurring place of mud. Our practice should be to understand, not to alleviate ourselves from that place of mud, right? That is how, through being aware, that awareness, that is where it truly comes. Because if you're telling yourself avoid, 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 you're always telling yourself, I am this kind of person, so I must avoid, 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 right? But so how are we going to tell ourselves in the same time of, I'm this kind of person, I have to avoid this, I also want to be enlightened? How confusing is that message? Do you understand what I mean? How confusing and also difficult is it to process that message? Because you are at the same time telling yourself be pure, whilst you're telling yourself you are impure, right? It is an absolute juxtaposition that you cannot alleviate yourself by, right? That is where, here, as it is said, what do we perceive? We have that experience base, not seeing yourself in the position, right? It is something which arises due to different mechanisms in its place, right? In its place. If it is greed, there is a mechanism behind it, right? If it is lust, there is a mechanism behind it. If it is dosa, there is a mechanism behind it. All of these constant consciousnesses that arise, mental factors that arise, all of these phenomena that arise have these elements that govern, rule, and those mechanisms which allow it to flourish. Realizing that allows us to not tell ourselves that we are corrupt internally, but to understand the fact that it is just what it is, without internalizing what we see and perceive. Very important part, right? Very important part. Was that helpful? I believe, yeah, that is an important point to remember, right? That is a very important point to remember. Perception, no non-perception, perceive, seen, heard, sensed, cognized, unity, all nirvana, right? Now, one might imagine, right? One might imagine that living by this etiquette or this mannerisms of mind would make one into a person who is unable to live with the world. No, that is completely wrong. This gives you the innate ability to actually live with the world whilst not being affected by it, right? To be not affected by it, not completely, right? Not completely. Remember the Buddha, when he was struck by Devadatta, he went through pain, right? He went through pain. You cannot completely, do not assume and sort of traject yourself to that position. Rather know that this is something. Have that hope in mind, the light through the tunnel, that hope that this is possible, right? That so commitment is very important. Commitment is very important, right? That is, to build that commitment, that is where our physical exercise, our mental training, right, those things come in, right? The meditation and the exercise, right? If you are having trouble to get out of bed in the morning as a practitioner, right, then you have to really question the choice, the routine of your life. What mentality are you going through, right? What mentality are you going through? If you are getting irritated all the time, you have to question yourself, right? If you every time something every time something goes wrong, every time something goes wrong, if we every time something goes wrong, if we are telling now this is something that you have to teach your children as well, right? To understand our emotions and our patterns of coping, our coping mechanisms, right? Every time something goes wrong, if we are going to react in a certain way, question that way of reacting, right? Question that way of reacting. Now, if even if you want to keep a record of it, right? If you got annoyed and you reacted in a certain way, right? If you, everyone is going, it is a bit too personal today. Siddhartha had to run out of the room. So, so, so to have a record of it in a way that we are aware, because these are habits, you see, right? These are habits. All of us, we all have it, right? We all have it. To break those habits is important, and that keeps our life exciting. That really does keep our life very exciting, because you're consistently working on yourself, consistently working on yourself. That is very important, right? That is very important, regardless of whatever age we are, right? Moving on. The Arahants. The Arahant, page number 119. The Arahat, the Arahat who has fully understood. Here, bhikkhus, a monk who is an Arahat with mental influxes destroyed. Now that mental influxes, this is all mental influxes destroyed. Who has lived the holy life, done what has to be done, done what has to be done, laid down the burden, reached his own goal, destroyed the fetters of being, liberated through right knowledge, directly knows earth as earth, having directly known earth as earth, he does not conceive himself as earth. He does not conceive himself in earth. He does not conceive himself apart from earth. He does not conceive Earth is mine. He does not delight in earth. Now, let me tell you, for me too, when I at park, when we are all given the first kamathana that we are all given is Anapanasati, right? It took me a good 3 to 4 weeks to actually be able to observe the breath properly. But when I did come to a position where now I was able to observe the breath properly, my gosh, that that peace that you feel, where you are not at a high state at all. You know it for yourself, but you are basically on the threshold of where you can observe without attachment. Right? This is the reason why Anapanasati has been referred to by the Buddha as the best, or one of the, has it been, yes, the Buddha has mentioned that Anapanasati in many places. The Buddha has spoken very, very highly of the technique of breathing meditation. Why? Because it directly allows you to have this, right? It directly, whilst now Vedanapasana, like the problem. Now, many people come out and say, oh, the meditation was good, meditation was bad. No, meditation was, why is the meditation bad? Because why? Pain. You realize usually it is pain, right? Not being able to see the sensation. Good, meaning you were comfortable, right? Now see, on both, now that is the disadvantage of Vedanapasana, because it is easy to be attached and seated and be comfortable upon the good because of the comfort. Anapanasati, you can't do that. You can't do that. Why? Because there's no place of comfort up until you are able to observe the breath without attachment. Right? You get that? I think we all understand that through our practice. Anapanasati, or because up until the point we are able to see it, our mind is always at a, oh my gosh, why am I controlling it? And then you try to not control it, and then you lose the breath somewhere, and then it is, isn't it? You go through different sort of moods with Anapanasati. That is why, because Anapanasati directly helps you to go to this position where you are able to observe without sort of personalizing that experience, right? Personalizing that experience. Moving on. He does not delight in earth. Why is that? Because he has full understanding. Parinyata. Parinyata is deep understanding. I say, he directly knows water as water, nirvana as nirvana. Why is that? Because he has full understanding. The Arahant has the full understanding. It is a full understanding that has allowed the Arahant to go there. So do not fear. Where does this true understanding, this full understanding, it lies in both pleasure and pain. It lies in both pleasure and pain. Let us take our characters, our personalities. If I am to ask, for example, who is Mala, who is Dil, who is Devika, who is, you always, you will be taken to, or you will travel to the things that you like and the things that you dislike, isn't it? Basically, the way you like your tea, the way you get dressed, the way you walk, the way you talk, all of these things. Now, all of these things, if you think about it, these are all Vedana, right? Vedanas that you have experienced and adopted, right? You like the taste of tea or coffee with 1 or 2 spoons of sugar. Now, that's a Vedana, right? Why is it 2 cups of sugar? It's a Vedana. Right? When you like that Vedana, the Sanya, when the Sanya is positive, now you make that yours. Now you are a person who likes 2 spoons of sugar. Right? Now, in that way, just imagine each and everything about you, each and everything. Right? There is no need to hide anything to ourselves. I'm not asking you to project. I'm asking you to go into yourself. each and everything. How do you like, or how would you prefer your children speaking to you, for example? Right? Most of us, we have certain, of course, we can say in general, we like when they're nice and, all of this, and they do what we say. We like it when they do what we say and are obedient and all of these things. That's a Vedana. That is a Vedana. You have made that perception a comfort to you. Now you realize, I am a person who likes to be treated in this way by my children. Now look at that. That puts our whole entire being into perspective to say, that is that. So where is the experience? How do we get out of that? Realizing that I can be a person who is okay with or without, right? We come to that position second now. But where should we get? We should get rid of the part, I am a person. That is where we have to get rid of. That is where the ego creates. Of course, difficult. That is why we slowly ease ourselves, right? Slowly ease ourselves. Now, a good practice is, I'm sure, sometimes, sometimes I have heard it. Sometimes I've heard how some of these children, speak to their, mothers and fathers, although it might not be derogatory, sometimes they're very rude, right? Sometimes they're very authoritative, because when they grow up and when they have adult money, they think they're the cat's whiskers, when they forget that, there's more things, just having a big body, like teenage boys, when they have a bit of strength, they're like, oh my gosh, I can do everything. How foolish. Anyways, so with all of these things, right, a good training for you is, when sometimes people are rude to you or talk to you in a not very pleasant way, make that a tool for yourself, right? But if you are the person who's doing it, then have that book or something to record. Realize, look here, the Dhamma, it is not like having one foot somewhere and one foot somewhere else. Your feet have to be together. Everything, lobha, dosa, moha, alobha, adosa, amoha, are all things that keep us in samsara. Lobha, dosa, moha is specifically useless. What is hina? I forget the words now. Anyways, low, mundane. It is nothing which is respected, right? Introduce you to yourself. Let me do things that, this is what one of my teachers told me. Do things that the devas would say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu to. Or if you want to go the extent, what the Buddha would say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu to. Meaning, what sadhu, sadhu is. It's a way of, sort of complimenting or saying well done, right? Do things in that way, especially with regards to your emotions. Remember, charity begins at home. Charity begins at home. People are leaving, you see. Maybe it's a bit too personal today. Charity begins. No, I mean, not Sudant, but someone else. Okay. Charity begins at home, meaning you have to realize that you have to first settle yourself here, right? If the person you're living with is sort of, if you're not treating or is not treating you, that is something that you need to directly look at, right? Directly look at, right? All right, coming back to the sutta, right? The Arahat, freed from lust. Here, bhikkhus, a monk who is an arahant, with mental influxes destroyed, liberated through right knowledge, directly knows earth as earth. Having directly known earth as earth, he does not conceive himself as earth. He does not conceive himself in earth. He does not conceive himself apart from earth. He does not conceive himself, earth is mine. He does not delight in earth. Why is that? Because he is freed from lust through the destruction of lust. Now, this is He knows water as water. He knows water as water, nirvana as nirvana, that whole list again. Why is that? Because he is freed from lust through the destruction of lust. Now, this is referring to when lust arises. Now, lust will arise. Right? However much you meditate, I don't know if you've read Achan Chah's sort of description of how he battled his lust, right? But it is no easy task. It will arise. It will arise. What do you do when it does arise? You learn, right? Now, these are all exercises for you, right? When lust arises, can you observe the lust without identifying with the lust? You know, if you are undergoing some sort of, this can be pain as well, similar, right? Even if it is pain, even if it is some sort of comfort or pleasure, if you might be having a good, comfortable sort of sofa or something like that, which you like to sit on, a chair or something. You sit on that chair and you observe that. Can you disattach yourself from the experience of comfort? That is what it is saying here. The lust, you separate it, just as he does not see himself as earth, himself in earth, apart from earth. Earth is mine. Nothing of that. Neither. Now, it is saying he does not conceive himself. Now, this is saying the absence of action. This is referring to, that is important to note. Huh? That is very important to note. This is not someone telling you. Now, for example, holding up the phone. Do not hold up the phone. It's not that. It is, you're not holding the phone. In the beginning, in the first place, when it is there, you're not holding the phone. So rather than, when, if you're holding the phone and telling yourself not to hold the phone consistently, that is not what is meant here. It is the absence of action. Do you understand? That is an important point again. It is the absence of action. For example, now, Anapanasati, when you are attaching yourself, you're telling yourself, don't cling on to it, don't control it, don't control. When you say that, have you realized that's exactly what you do? Right? Because why? When you say don't control the breath, don't control, every time you say breath, it goes deeper. Right? Now, for example, in my meditations, I repeat the word relaxation, relaxation, relaxation. Because in the first few, when you say relaxation a lot, every time that I tell you relaxation, subconsciously you go deeper, right? That is a mental thing, right? When you say don't do it, or now referring to a specific object, the more that you say don't, it's do, right? That is how the mind works. The more you tell, similar, now you can see it in your kids, yeah? When you say don't do something too much, that's exactly what they do. Right? I mean, no need to look at our children. That's exactly what we did, right? And you did when you were young as well, right? Because that, it doesn't it. Think about it. It creates intrigue. It creates intrigue. Why? Because you're listening now. Don't touch it. Don't touch the phone. What is the main object? The nominative case of that sentence. Don't touch the phone. What? The phone is nominative. That is the primary subject of the sentence. So when the primary subject of the sentence in language itself, where is attention going to? The nominative case. Where? The phone. Right? So this is the absence of action. That is where the training and skill is needed. Right? Where you can now behave without action. Do you get it? Behaving without action. Right? Almost like you observe the breath, or you breathe without your intention to. The breathing is an involuntary action. Almost like that. The observing must almost become involuntary, and it does. I promise you, it does. Right? Just have to be training yourself and programming this, right? Coming back. So lust, how is lust then tackled? You observe the lust in a way that you do not identify with it, right? You observe it in a way that you do not identify with it. Hate, same thing. How do you do hate? In a similar way, he does not conceive himself as earth. Similarly, hate, you look in the same way. You do not cling on to it, or rather, you observe it without internalizing it to yourself, right? Internalizing it. Because of the lack of internalizing that subject, what happens is the way that it fuels the anusayas and then the paryuttanas, the vitikamas and the paryuttanas, the latent tendencies, the paryuttana. Anyone knows the English of paryuttana? No. So paryuttana are the hindrances which come to the mind but doesn't go beyond the mind, right? Meaning you will only be thinking. So you hate someone, but it's only in the mind. But then there are paryuttanas, there are some sort of hate. You want to slap the person, or you sort of, you clench your teeth, or you sort of grip your hand or fist or something. That is called, paryuttana. Vitikama is the mind. Paryuttana is that physical, you hit a person or you sort of do something, that is where the extent goes to. So when you do not fuel that object, the way the object would fuel your anusaya, paryuttana, and anusaya, vitikama, and paryuttana reduces gradually. When it reduces gradually, when the anusaya is now subjected to get weaker along these lines, different lines of hindrances, what happens is now the programming starts. Because as long as you are reacting to the anusaya, the programming is impossible, right? The anusaya must be shut down by all cost. It must be. To do that, you have to now, the paryuttana comes through the habits, right? Sila, yeah, Devika. Why are you putting your hand up?
I was just checking the word paryuttana. It says knowing the eightfold path. Is it right? I was just checking online to see what the meaning is. Paryuttana.
I mean, can be connected to knowing the Eightfold Noble Path, but not
Yes,
exactly. Not
exactly.
the meaning of the term, right?
Yes, I just want to clarify with you. That's why.
So, three types. If you type in on Google 3 types of kilesa, it will come actually. So, yeah, anusaya. So when the anusaya, paryuttana. How is the paryuttana affected? Habits. You have to break your habits, right? If that annoyance is something which is gradual and normal for you, if that way of reaction, hateful reaction, is gradual and normal for you, if all of that is now, that is where sila is brought in. Paryuttana is tackled by sila. Sila is there to tackle your habits, right? These habits which have their roots in kilesa, right? What happens, right? Now when you see the Buddha, through his practice of the Jatakas, what does he show us? The breaking of habits in the name of the practice. The breaking of habits in the name of the practice. That is what he showed, right? That is why, so Sila is not to take you to heaven, not to take you, it is to break the habits. To break the habits that we have subjected our conditioning to through the eons of existence. Through the eons of existence. Then we come to the Vitikama. Vitikama is about the mind. Vitikama is tackled how? Meditation. Samatha specifically. right? Through samatha meditation or tranquility meditations, what happens is that the vitikama is it is quieted, where now you are aware, okay, anger has arisen, right? And it has arisen, you are observing it, and you become the master, right? It is hot now. Some people, you sometimes, okay, if you take your teenage grandchildren, or you being teenagers or teenagers, basically, sometimes when it gets very stressful, or they start shouting and screaming, and children do that, right? Why? Because no control of the mind, mastery, right? That is why we say don't be a child, right? Don't act like a child, right? Why? No mastery of the mind, right? But now, if we are acting like that, right, in, of course, in more mature ways, but yet still child, right? Yet still child. We are not supposed to, or actually using the word suppose is wrong. We are not acting in that way or reacting in that way is not in our best interest, is not in our best interest, right? Saying, for example, when it's hot and you complain about it, it becomes hotter, right? When it's cold and you complain about it, it becomes colder, right? That's the way the mind is. Now you become the mind. You control that samatha. And then the anusaya is vipassana, right? Vipassana. Sometimes it's very difficult, isn't it? To sort of, ingest vipassana is sometimes very difficult. What do? You read the suttas, right? You read the suttas, you read the Dhamma, you contemplate and ponder upon
Mm.
Dhamma. How is this practical and applicable to me? That is, it is like having some
Mm.
turmeric. It is like having some turmeric powder, applying some turmeric
You
on
always say, why are you applying to us?
it is like applying some turmeric powder or sort of turmeric powder for falling on your counter. What will happen? It will stain, right? Reading the Dhamma, being with the Dhamma all the time will stain in a good way, in the best way possible, right? That is what is to be done, right? That is what is to be done. Even now, for example, when you're in a good mood, when you are happy, when you're having a good time that day, your face is lit up, you're happy, everyone around you is happy. That is the wholesome stain, if we are to call it, right? That is what we go for, right? But we are not attached to it, because some days are good, some days are bad, and sometimes your day depends on people who live with you. It's okay, right? It's okay. It is important to come into that position. Then we have hate and delusion, right? Hate and delusion. Now, delusion is a tricky guy. Delusion is very, very tricky, right? Delusion has to be tackled with Dhamma, realizing, because sometimes the way that we approach these topics is either through atimanya or I forgot the Pali word, but it's either through a conceit which is higher, or a conceit or avamanya, right? Or conceit which is low, right? Now the thing is, both of it is wrong, right? Both of it is wrong. Why does that arise? Why does atimanya and avamanya arise? Now, for example, now we talk about the Dhamma, and we tell ourselves, okay, don't think highly of yourself, right? Then what are you supposed to do? Think lowly of yourself. Then you do that. That is also wrong, right? The thing is realizing that self does not exist. How can you come to a position where you realize, actually, this is only knowledge at this point. You don't realize up until the very end. But knowing in yourself, right? Having that equality in mind, right? Because people, this is what happens a lot within spiritual circles. It is always, you see, sometimes it's very difficult with the ego, because everyone now turns a spiritual practice into an ego. That makes it very difficult. I am better than you in this way, that way, this way, right? That is very, very toxic to the practice. That is not what is to be done, right? So realize, having the Dhamma, delusion is a factor where you need Dhamma to tackle it, or else it's very difficult, almost impossible. Almost impossible. Because the common man's motivation is always atimanya or adimanya, right? Always atimanya or adimanya. It is on these spectrums that we float from. We must realize that there is no self to cling on to in the first place. Although we might not realize it and know it for sure, we must know that Dhamma at heart. That is where the Shraddha comes into play, right? That's so. This is why, this is again the Bodhispashika Dhamma at play, right? Bodhispashika Dhamma at play. So a love, sila, samadhi, panya. Have your morals, be aware. Morals have to come with awareness. If you are just moral, if you are, if it, for example, when you go into a forest, it is very easy to keep your precepts. But when you come out of the forest, now you start break. I realized this actually as a child when I went to the forest. 5 precepts, very easy. Coming back home, right? 5 precepts, very difficult, right? Now I realize the fact that I was going or allowing the flow to carry me in the forest as well as the flow to carry me at home. You know what I mean? The flow of the house, the flow of the monastery, right? So because the flow is of a such way I behave in, we have to take control. It is not about going with the flow or together with the flow. It is about crediting yourself, right? When you now, for example, dinner is always an enjoyable meal, isn't it? Right? Dinner is an enjoyable meal. You try to enjoy dinner as much as you can, because you are going to rest afterwards. You don't have anything to do. You just, relax really after dinner, right? So you enjoy. Now, you eat a lot sometimes, right? Sometimes you eat a lot. And how does it feel? It feels very bad. Huh? It feels very bad, right? Now, for me, it is lunch. Right? It is lunch, because it's the last meal now, right? So it is lunch, right? But when you realize now, of course, because with the workload, right now I can't afford to eat that much because I had to work, or else if I take a nap, my day is finished, right? I can't understand those people who can take a nap and get up in 1 hour. I can never get up in 1 hour. I just cannot understand those people. Right? In Burma actually we slept at 12 o'clock, and of course everyone, the gong is rung at 1 o'clock and everyone gets up. I remember even at university, the chancellor, he had a yoga mat behind his chair and he would also have lunch and sleep at 12 o'clock. This is the chancellor of the university, right? So when we go to see him sometimes during this time, so then we know, not to go during that time, because almost everyone in the country is sleeping, right? Everyone in the country is sleeping. That is something that they used to. 12 to 1 in Burma, everyone sleeps, right? I can't understand getting up, especially when you're living alone, getting up when it's a cold day, right? It's impossible to get up after 1 hour. So what do? You don't eat. The comfort of not eating too much, or the comfort of just enjoying the little that you absolutely need, right, is actually so good. Right? Is actually so good. But what if the awareness is not there? Then some people don't even realize that you are so uncomfortable after the meal because you're eating too much. Some people do not realize this, that it is uncomfortable, or the reason that they sleep so long after lunch or dinner, or why they are getting fat or whatever, they don't realize why. The awareness is not there. Are you observing the body? This observing is very important. But remember, with Dhamma, through the scope of Dhamma, we must realize that is the Dhamma teaches us in a most definite, accurate way what pleasure, peace, tranquility is. And that mode is very easy to understand. Why? We understand when we let go, it is so peaceful. Right? The light that our lives are, it is so peaceful. Right? That comes through the Dhammic understanding. So for delusion, we absolutely need it. For delusion, we absolutely need it. I think in certain countries, I would say, in countries like America, where where it is, for example, LA is deemed as the the narcissistic capital of the world, right? LA is deemed as the narcissistic capital of the world, right? Where I think, Devika, you're in California, isn't it?
I was there for 20 years and now I'm in the East Coast since
Right.
last year.
Okay. So it is now in places we sometimes, because we are also affected by where we live, right? The location, because we adapt to those. That is where the Buddha says, uh, suitable locations for practice. That is why Mahinda Thero did not go to Sri Lanka during that time. The Adammika king was the king. He waited, right? Suitable places for practice. But remember, all of these things do not matter if the awareness is that much high and the power of Dhamma is something that you believe in, right? The power of Dhamma outweighs all other factors, right? It is to get to that position that the Buddha tells all of these little other things that sort of affect it. But at the end of the day, it is the awareness and your Shraddha towards Dhamma. Towards Dhamma. It is to give the Dhamma more emphasis that the Buddha is there. Because when there's a person, it's easier to give more emphasis, right? When there's a person, the practice becomes rather easier. Now we go to the Tathagata, right? Page number 121. The Tathagata, who has fully understood in the similar way the Tathagata bhikkhus, the Tathagata Buddha does come, worthy, araham, fully enlightened, directly knows earth as earth, having directly known the earth as earth. This is to say, practitioners, arahants, even the Buddhas are able to realize, observe, experience without a personal connotation on a phenomena. That is the path to nirvana. That is the path leading to nirvana. When the personal connotation arises, there then arises with the connotation the prapanchas. The prapanchas are that it is like a sticky tape or a super glue almost, or a sort of waxy glue. I like to sort of take sort of the example of, like, sort of like a waxy glue, where you can sort of, like you can sort of like pull it apart, but the moment that you let go of it, smack back, sticks. It is something of that, because what you do is you pull, and then you let go of it, you relax, and then back into believing all that the bad and the akusalas are good, and the delusion and all of that arises. Right? All of that arises. The prapanchas are made able by the lack of that awareness. Next, the Tathagata 2, the perfect self-awakened one. Bhikkhus, the Tathagata, this is referring to a Pacheka Buddha and a Buddha, right? The one, the Pacheka Buddha and the Buddha, right? Bhikkhus, the Tathagata, worthy self-awakened, directly knows earth as earth. Having directly known earth as earth, he does not conceive himself as earth. He does not conceive himself in earth. He does not conceive himself apart from earth. He does not conceive earth is mine. He does not delight in earth. Why is that? Because he knows thus delight in the root of suffering, and that on account of being delight is the root of suffering. Why is that? Because, sorry. Why is that? Because he knows thus. Delight is the root of suffering. This is to all of you who enjoy the meditation on Saturdays and Sundays. And that on account of being, there is birth. That having come into being, there is decay and death. Therefore, bhikkhus, through the complete destruction of craving, through fading away of lust, through cessation, through letting go, the Tathagata has awakened to perfect self-awakening, I say, right? Through the Tathagata has awakened into perfect self-awakening, I say, right? Now, the complete destruction of craving, the fading away of lust, through cessation, through letting go, right? Through cessation. Cessation is a natural process that arises when the mechanisms in place have been damaged and destroyed, dismantled, right? That is why the word cessation, where now when the mechanism is unable to process, it is dismantled, it cannot arise, cessation. How is that made possible? Through letting go, through letting go, right? Through letting go. This is not an easy task. This is something that we all have to work on each and every day, right? Each and every day, right? You and me both. You and me both, we have to work on this each and every day. It is no easy task. None of this is easy, right? Why is that? Because he knows thus delight in roots, delights the root of suffering and all of that. This is what the Blessed One said. The monks did not joy. Huh? Sena Atmanate Bhikkhu Bhagavata Vasita Kapinandanti. Oh. Atmanate Bhikkhu Bhagavata Vasita Kapinandanti. Okay. Yeah. So this is what the Blessed One said. The monks did not joyfully approve of the Blessed One, right? Did not joyfully. This is then sort of say na Atmanate Bhikkhu Bhagavato Vasatang Apinandunti, right? B omits Atmana. So the PTS version, Atmanate Bhikkhu Bhagavato Vasatang Adminandunti. So this is, so the PTS version, this is taking two versions. So basically the bhikkhus did approve of it. I think this is the connotation which says, you know, the joy, because it attacks the joy, right? It attacks the joy. So it sort of omits, or rather, you know, to say the bhikkhus approved of it, but not joyfully, right? So with equanimity, not a, you know what I mean, right? So yes, so this is the Mulapariyāya Sutta. So at the end, what have we learned from the Mulapariyāya Sutta? To cognize all that we have through the five sensory doors, all that we experience as objects that we receive through the five sensory doors, including the body and the mind, to be able to develop, being able to develop the ability to observe these to observe these phenomena without the personal me, myself, and I. Cultivating, developing the ability to let go, but actually, in terms of using Dhamma to let go of all of these things, that is where Nirvana lies. Right? That is where Nirvana lies. Right? Put yourself into test. We have been putting in, all of you, actually, this group has been putting in, some of them are not here today, but this group has been putting in so much of time to Dhamma excavation through the past. Corona has been a very good time for all of us in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
But let us be more serious. How? Not by increasing the time of meditation per se, but really looking into our lives, going against the grain, going against the flow of the river, right? When anger arises, do not react. Tell yourself, no, I am not going to be a, a puppet of this anger. When delusion arises, I am not going to be a puppet of this, right? Go against it. Fight not anyone else. Fight yourself. Fight yourself. That is what we have to do. Not change in the world. Not change in the world. But actually fighting the conditions that we have. It feels, when we are hurt, it feels so good to hurt someone else. It feels so good to hurt someone else. But remember that that is just the delusion and hatred working inside of you. It's just the delusion and hatred working inside of you. That is all it is. We have to use the meditation daily, use the practice, the Dhamma knowledge that you have, right? To go deeper. Do not tell yourself, I don't know the Dhamma. You cannot tell that you do not know the Dhamma. Right? You might not be knowing certain Pali words. You might not be knowing the Sinhala words. You might not be knowing the English words sometimes. But you have a sense of, with what we have gone through for the past 6 to 8 months now, you have a good understanding of what Dhamma is, even though you might not be able to articulate it. You have a good understanding. Right? Stick to that. Keep to the practice. Keep on developing. If sometimes, when with the question the ways that you react, question the ways that you usually would sort of behave, and see whether these are ways that leads and help you towards enlightenment. Because why is my meditation not cultivating or developing? The answer is there. The answer is in your daily life. The answer is in your daily life. Nowhere else. Nowhere else. No one can tell you, if your mind is not in the right place, however much the Dhamma you hear and listen to, you will not be able to grasp that. It is all in. There have been people who have enlightened themselves listening to the youngest of monks preaching the Dhamma, to the oldest and the most senior of enlightened beings preaching the Dhamma. It is all down to not the seniority or whatnot. It is down to where your mind is and what your mind is able to understand. That is it. Push yourself through this. We know, we've gone through the main sutta. Brahmajala Sutta is the main sutta. Mulapariyāya Sutta is one of the most deeper suttas. This can be explained, mind you. If you read this in another week or so, you will understand more of this. You'll be able to connect more of this. This sutta can be explained in so many ways. Paticcasamuppada can be explained through this sutta. This sutta is so deeply interlinked with the rest of the Tipitaka. Making it one of the most easiest, yet one of the most hardest suttas to also teach. This is what it is. I remember actually the first time that I got myself on the Bhikkhu, the yellow Majjhima Nikaya book, I read this because obviously the book starts with this. So I read this and I went back to my teacher and I was like, I read the first sutta, but I didn't get any of it. So I just thought now, okay, how far I've come, you know what I mean? And from that child who did not understand anything, I was like, what is this? To now being able to actually, so it's good. So make sure actually we are all working on it. I am not saying that I may know a little bit more Dhamma. I may know a little bit more Dhamma because I've learned it. I've spent so much of time with other monks and all of that. But we are all in one way or another in the same boat, really. Right? I have my problems and issues. You have your problems and issues, and we are all trying to get through this together. Right? And no one is pretending here and telling, that I am more enlightened than. No, we are all unenlightened beings in this path, experience, and journey. Right? We are all going through difficulty. It is not only you. Right? So remember, next time you say, why me? Ask yourself, why not me? Right? Why not me? Right? Because we are all human living the same experience. Right? So, do we have any questions before we wrap up the session? And what is the next sutta that you would like to do? What, Devika?
I think one sutra was suggested by Damsiri, I think, the other day. He suggested one, which was really good. I wrote it somewhere. I'm getting old, can't remember where I wrote it.
Madhupindika Sutta.
Madhupindika, that's it.
Okay. Any questions, anyone?
But Bante, can I just clarify a couple of things, please? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So that, in this, somewhere in this we read, where was it? Let me see, page, read it today. Yes. On page 180. When he said, he perceives the seen as the seen, the heard as heard, he senses and cognizes. Is that what we say? Ditte dittamanti, sute suttamanti, mute muttamanti, vinyana vinyamanti, the seen, the seen. Is that what that in English is?
It is similar.
Yeah.
It is connected and it is very similar, right? Seeing what is being seen. It is that also refers to seeing as an experience without going into the internal dialogue, and you see, this is also biological. Right? This is also biological. When you meditate in MBCT, this is taught. When you meditate and the mind's cognitive processor shift from an egocentrical approach of cognition to an experience-based approach of cognition, which has been proved to be the key to a happy life. It has been proved scientifically that when you are living on an egocentric pattern and manner of cognition, right, where everything that you take into the eye, nose, and the five sensory doors, that it is more detrimental to your happiness. Please, right, let's work on ourselves. Right? Work on ourselves. You might be a person with having certain tendencies, but break it. Enjoy breaking it, because it is wrong according to Dhamma. It is going to come, kick you in the butt when you least expect it. Right? And this is not what anyone else is doing to you. This is what you are doing to yourself. This is what you are adding on to your samsara. right? Is what you're adding on to your samsara. Okay. Any other things? Any other questions that anyone would be having?
One more, Bante. You were talking about this is not mine and I'm not this and this is not myself. Is that the one in the Anantalakkhana Sutta we say Etam mama eso hamasame eso me attasi? Is that what you were telling us? This is mine and this and this myself,
Yeah.
or the opposite? Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bante.
Yeah.
And these two other words, because I read a lot in English, Bante, just bear with me. When at the very end, when you were talking about, yes, the last paragraph, therefore because through the complete destruction of craving is dana, this fading away is this viraga of lust, cessation is nirodha, and letting go is patinisagga. Is that right?
Sorry, repeat again, please.
Right. So this is the last page, 122, one but the last paragraph. Therefore, because through the complete disorder, through fade, because this all comes in the Anantalakkhana Sutta English translation.
Yeah.
Through fading away is viraga of the, through cessation is nirodha, letting go is patinisagga of the Japan. Because when they explain
Viraga, however,
yes.
yes, can be connected,
Yes.
but not the direct translation.
Right, that's what's
Because
given.
now, viraga, now
Yeah.
what is the translation of viraga that you said?
A fading away viraga, because there's another thing that's not viraga, that's where did I write it now? Through fading, right. Destruction of craving, right? That is viraga. Destruction of craving is viraga. Fading away, nirodha, cessation.
Yeah.
And destruction of craving is vitaraga, but fading away is viraga.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way. And nirodha is cessation, letting go is patinisagga. That's on page 120.
Yes.
Thank you, Bante. Sorry.
The fading. I mean, it is viraga. It is viraga at the end of it, but the Pali word gives a different feel to how it is done, rather than the word fading away. But yes, of course.
That's why the Pali is so much better, because English doesn't have things. But when you read constantly, they use these words. And like when you're reading Anapanasati Sutta, those last 4 stages, they tell those. The same thing in Anantalakkhana Sutta, they say those.
Yeah.
So it's when you are trying to like listen to Bante, when you are using a lot of the Pali, it's good to see, because then you can see the process of how it all happens in the language that I usually think about. Thank you, Bante. It's very clear to me. And thank you for a really good discussion today that helps me to look at everything and work on ourselves, Bante. Thank you.
That is very important, or else none of this really matters, you see. If we are not sort of developing and pushing ourselves to be sort of more dhammic. So any other things that anyone would like to ask, or no? Okay, we have a lot of exciting things, coming up. No, I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but a lot of exciting things coming up. So yes, very, very rare opportunities for Buddhists in the UK. I would say Buddhists in general. So yes, I'll let you all know in the right time. So take care and goodbye. I will see you on Saturday. Right? Take care.
Thank you, Bante.
Saturday first.
Thank you.
Good night.
Saturday and Sunday.